Hi, I'm Benjamin Miss, and we are now doing a brief quiz on our knowledge of psychology. Now, these are things that we haven't necessarily covered, so if you're not 100% sure, let's see where we're at. So, we're just going to answer true or false to each of these. So, what I'd like you to do is to take a moment and pause, read through the questions, and try to decide what you think the correct answer is. And now I'll go over and explain them. All right? Okay. Now, I'll still read through them, and we'll look at what you said and what we think. Now, there's an important distinction here. When it comes to learning, what we want to do is actually say what we think the answer is. If I ask a question, it's the same thing with the multiple choice questions I ask in discussions or videos or lectures. If you stop and answer the question, you will remember more. I cannot tell you how unfortunate it is that a lot of students are afraid to be wrong. And if we're afraid to be wrong, we're going to hurt ourselves in the long run. We have to accept that we are going to be wrong in life probably more than we're right. And that's fine. So there's research on this, and it says that when you answer a question wrong, you learn more, right, when we go over the question, than if you just skip the question and wait for me to tell you the answer. I know, it seems odd, maybe counterintuitive, but trust me. I want you to answer the questions. Give yourself that chance, and then we look at our thinking. Some of these, there may be room for a little bit of debate. There may be some times where it could be one or the other. But let's start with the first one. Most people only use 10% of their brain. This is false. Most people use 100% of their brain, right? So there's this myth that gets perpetuated. There's movies, TV shows, you take that pill and it opens up your consciousness. You've got those new age people who are like, oh, we can access these other aspects of our mind through these different techniques. And there is some truth to meditators, right? You've seen perhaps the videos of the monks who meditate and they can raise their body temperature, change their heart rate. But that's a very specific skill, and your brain's doing that on its own. So when we think about what our brain's doing, our brain is doing a lot of automatic tasks that don't require our input. That's good. Could you imagine if you had to think about every breath that you take? Some sea mammals do, for instance. Like dolphins have to maintain control of their breathing so they don't drown, right? They know to breathe when they go to the surface and not when they're underwater. But it has to be a conscious process for them. So we've got these automatic processes, these brainstem processes, but our brain's still functioning. It's not like we can suddenly access that and it's going to give us the ability to do telekinesis or be psychic or whatever. It's just that, we are using our whole brain. And the cost, the energy cost is so high. It uses a massive amount of our body's energy for a fairly small organ comparably that if we didn't use the whole thing, it'd be a big waste of energy. So no, we use our brain. We use our whole brain. And if you stopped using part of it, your brain would probably kill those cells off because they'd be like, we don't need these. Why are we maintaining them? Okay. Next, playing infants Mozart boosts their intelligence. This is false. Okay, you may have heard of the Mozart effect, or you've seen those baby Mozart CDs. Well, this is marketing. There was one study done years ago, and I believe it was done at UCI. And what happened was they played Mozart music for college students. And for a brief period, for about 15 minutes after playing the music, they showed a slight improvement in certain cognitive tasks. And then the effect went away. That's it. And you got this whole industry of baby Mozart built on a study that has nothing to do with babies. And so it's a myth. And it's just another way to milk money from parents who want the best for their kids. And in addition, there's plenty of Mozart that you can find that doesn't, it's in the public domain. There's plenty of recordings that are free. And you know what? Is it going to hurt you to play Mozart for your baby? No. But is it going to change them or make them into a baby genius? No. Next, number 3. Hypnosis is useful for retrieving memories of forgotten events. This one is false. Why? Well, it turns out that this is a myth that has been perpetuated again by media, where you have somebody go into hypnosis and they're like, okay, remember the license plate that you saw, or retrieve this memory. If the memory's not there, it's not there. And there's, this links into the idea of repressed memory, and we'll talk about this in depth in our discussion of memory. But the key here is hypnosis is not going to somehow dig down and get you access to something that you don't have access to. Hypnosis can help to quiet your mind, can help you get in touch with feelings that you may not be associating with certain things, and can help you to do therapy and heal, but it can't like rewind the tape and focus in on certain things. Number 4, stomach ulcers are caused by stress. This one is false. False. Well, can stress weaken our immune system? Sure. But all illnesses are caused by pathogens, and stomach ulcers are caused by some kind of bacteria. And I believe that the researcher got a Nobel Prize for basically giving themselves an ulcer by drinking a concoction that had this pathogen in it, showing that it was something to cause this. So yes, is stress bad? Sure, right? But it's not the cause, like, oh, you're worrying, you're going to give yourself an ulcer. More like, you're really stressed out. You're not taking care of yourself. And this could have a lot of negative effects. In fact, stress is bad for you at certain levels, right? Little stress, good. A lot of stress, I should say can be good, but a lot where you're not sleeping, you're not eating well, go. That's a problem. Number 5, our handwriting reveals our personalities. The answer is false. There are Fortune 500 companies that hire handwriting experts to analyze the people they're thinking about hiring for CEOs and saying, oh, this person loops this in this way, it means they're dishonest, or it means they're a genius, or it means something. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. This is pseudoscience. Handwriting analysis is absolute pseudoscience. And yet, people buy into it, and people get paid a lot of money to do it. Number 6, opposites attract. We prefer romantic partners who differ from us. This one is false. Well, we hear opposites attract, right? Again, pop culture compared to what we actually know. Turns out that even if someone looks different from you, let's say you're dating someone with a different ethnic background, they probably still share a lot of values, right? Probably similar financial behaviors, similar religious behaviors. It's rare, you know what I mean? And I think one of the reasons we perceive opposites of attracting is those things that stand out to us draw our attention. So we notice when two people are very different in a relationship. That's surprising to us. And it might lead us to say, aha, opposites attract. But in reality, no. You are more likely to be with someone who's similar to you than you are to be with someone who is different. Number 7, people with schizophrenia have multiple personalities. This one is false. In fact, people have like pop culture and just the population in general tend to see this one as schizophrenia and multiple personalities being the same thing. Well, multiple personality disorder, which is now called dissociative identity disorder, is rare. It is extremely rare. Okay. People with schizophrenia have psychosis, and psychosis means not connected to reality. Delusions, perhaps hallucinations, auditory hallucinations like hearing voices. This is schizophrenia. And yet, it is not the same thing as having multiple personalities, which is believed to be caused by severe childhood trauma. Number 8, most mentally ill people are violent. And the answer to this one is false. Mentally ill people are actually less likely to be violent than the general population. So you are probably more likely, assuming you're not mentally ill, to be violent than someone who has mental illness. Now, there are a couple mental illnesses that are linked to violence. But again, these are rare and they're the minority. But what happens? We tend to see media, we tend to see these portrayals of the kind of mentally ill person who's having a psychotic break and doesn't realize what they're doing and is behaving violently. Number 9. Criminal profiling is useful in solving cases. Well, of course, we've all seen the X-Files and, the profiling on the cop shows, and yet this one is false. Turns out that they were profiling serial killers for quite a while, and they kept coming up with the same profile. White male, probably in his 30s, a loner, family discord. It's always the same profile, right? And what really shed light on this, and so, the study of criminals, criminology, it's useful. And yet the idea of profiling based on the crime, it was guesswork. The reason it was usually like a white male in their 30s was that was the majority of the population that was committing crimes, right? Men do tend to commit more violent crimes, and there's more white men than anything else. One of the things that happened was in the Washington shootings, this was the Washington sniper shortly after 9/11. Basically, they were just picking off people at gas stations in public, and it was panicked. People were panicked. It was terrifying because you could just be out going about your business and someone was just shooting people. And they had the same profile, right? They came up with the same profile, white male, 30s. And it turned out that it wasn't a lone white male. It wasn't a lone person at all. It was a guy and his stepson who were both minorities that were doing this together. And so it kind of shed a lot of light on the whole that, wait a minute, let's look at these profiles. Are we basically doing the same profile over and over? And it was kind of like, pop psychology, right? Looking at patterns and saying it's probably this. And if you were guessing that, you were probably right and you looked like a genius until you didn't. Until you actually started to look at, if we look at crimes, we can say the perpetrator probably is like this, but it's all statistics. Who's more likely to commit crimes, who lives in this area. Number 10, it is better to express your anger than to hold it in. And this one is false. Now, before you get out the pitchforks, I understand there's some debate about this, but there is research that suggests that when we express our anger, we often do it in unhealthy ways that lead to rumination. And rumination it doesn't allow the anger to dissipate. So there was a study that looked at, they basically got people angry. They created a task that led to bad feelings, and then they were going to let the people kind of retaliate. And before they had them retaliate, they had them go into one of 3 conditions. The first condition was punch a punching bag for exercise. Just here's what I want you to do. Just punch a punching bag. Another condition was punch the punching bag, but think about the person who made you angry. And the last condition was do some deep breathing and think about something else. And what it turned out was, if you think about punching the bag and expressing your anger and getting out your bad feelings, that you should feel better and do less retaliation. What it turned out was the people who exercised and the people who did the deep breathing and tried to focus on other things, they were less likely to retaliate, right? So it seems in a lot of ways that expressing our anger, how we do it, can lead to this rumination, this focusing, this obsessing on it that doesn't really allow it to dissipate, but instead allows it to fester. Now, one of the things you may have noticed after a while is every single one of these are false. What is the difference? What makes psychology a science? It's saying, let's take our beliefs about things and let's test them. And also understand that why don't people trust science? One reason people may not trust science is if you go into the population, if you go into what people think they know about these things, is a lot of it's false, myth, perpetuated through marketing and sales and people who believe a certain thing and try to cherry pick the results and data to support their beliefs. The anger one relates back to Freud, his idea of catharsis. That we can have this moment where we just are able to be free of the anger, when in reality, people who are angry think a lot about being angry, and people who aren't are able to let it go. Anyway, that is our look at what we are going to call the myths, right? Our understanding of what is true in regards to psychology. Thank you very much.